Welcome to AMS Radio, a show where two rational adults respectfully discuss topics. Radical, no? We believe all topics can be incredibly nuanced and covered in 5 minutes, or maybe cannot be, but will be anyway. Now, here's everything you need to know about what's happening now.
Don't wanna be an American, baby.
Alright, Connor, what kind of knowledge are we dropping today? What are we talking about?
Elected state representatives left the state they were elected to represent to protest electoral laws.
5 minutes on the clock. We can start before it gets down to 10 because it can't get rid of that.
You guys talk a lot.
Yeah, also I can't get rid of that setting.
Oh,
Why
gotcha.
don't you roll first?
Oh, okay. So like I said, there's 67 House Democrats that flew from Texas to D.C. specifically to protest the legislation that's going on in Texas, and I forget what the specifics are, to be honest, of the laws that they're proposing. I'm pretty sure it has to do
Voter
around.
restriction, I
Yeah,
assumed?
well, yeah, but it's more specific than that.
Gotcha.
It's like it has to do around like requiring IDs, has to do with 24-hour like polling locations and the ability to drop off your ballots. I read about it on Monday, and now it's Sunday, so I like kind of have lost a lot of the information to some extent. The weeks are busy, but. Basically, what they did is in the middle of the night, they got on, a bunch of private charter jets with a case of Miller Lights. I find it so funny that the Republicans really honed in on the Miller Lights is a problem here.
And this is Bush Nation, that's what I'm taking from it.
Well, anyways, the governor basically was like, well, when they get back, we're going to arrest them all for obstructing, democracy is his kind of take on it. And, he's a conservative who's really focused on restricting voter rights and trying to keep Texas red is all I understand. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting topic because, we elect these members of Congress. Are they acting in good faith by leaving? Right. Some say yes, some say no. And so I just feel like there's a discussion to be had here.
Yeah, no, I think my commentary will be pretty quick on this. Look, America doesn't like it when people of color vote. That is the be-all and end-all of this. So these Democratic members left Texas to go to the White House to get Congress to do something because it is in entirely Democratic control that I'm pretty sure Joe Manchin doesn't want to do. And that's why it won't happen. But they need to pass a bill that essentially enforces voting rights in America, because if we don't, let's face it, if Trump gets close again, there's 90% chance of a straight-up coup. And I think that is why people are so terrified of this. But conservatives would argue election integrity, big lie, that kind of stuff. And ultimately, the way to fix it is, I don't know, Joe Biden better talk to Joe Manchin and get this bill passed so that there's legislation at the federal level, and then see what the courts do.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what's the bill that I'm stupid.
I think it's called HR 1.
What does it all entail?
It's essentially like a ton of reforms for voting. So, access to early voting, access to mail-in voting, access to, there's just a ton of different legislation to make voting a lot easier, like making voting a national holiday. Voting that
the
Tuesday.
rights that we have because we're U.S. citizens. Is that
Right.
what I'm getting? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And usually the conservative straw man argument has to do around, well, we need stricter voter ID laws because, anyone could vote, and Texas is a state that has a lot of undocumented immigrants, and so do we really know that we only have American citizens voting and participating in our democracy? And I think time and time again what we have seen is basically most people don't actually actively participate in democracy, so I think all participation should be welcome and great, and as long as you're not voting more than once, great. But I think the voter laws that I have more of an issue with are around corporations and their money than even individuals,
100%.
because big money buys these elections. Well, it doesn't even buy the elections, it buys the politicians behind the elections. So who fucking cares
Maddie
about the
just
vote
showed
itself?
me the bill itself. It's 791 pages. I'm sorry, who has the time to read that?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with voting laws in there, because that is how that works.
A bunch of older people that get summer vacations even though they're supposed to be working. They better fucking read it. This is where I'm at.
Well, they have their interns read it. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, classic line.
Yeah, they get the Cliff Notes version of the bill.
Yeah, I don't know if we have an answer to this, but this is what's going on this week, you know, as far as that goes, so...
Yeah, the only fix is federal legislation that the court would probably strike down anyway, so...
And, you know, I'd say something different, but, you know...
Well,
Get rid of all boomers. I don't know.
Yeah.
The reaping, so to speak.
But...
Anyway, it looks like time is...
The oceans are getting emptier. Tonight on the Discovery Channel.
Oh, reset. That's how you do it.
Yeah, Cass, cut this.
There we go. Cass. Shark Week, take 2. Yeah, so I guess to introduce this one, Maddie and I were watching some of the episodes on Discovery this week. Most of them really, really suck, but obviously Shark Week's an important reminder every year that we're destroying our ecosystem, and sharks, being the apex predator of the sea, are one of the most endangered species on the planet, and, you know, we continue to overfish their food supply and kill them. So, you know, it's a fun reminder of the beauty and magnificence of these powerful animals. And, you know, specifically my favorite episode that we encountered was with the guys from Jackass. They decided to revive their franchise and introduce them to the Gen Zers, to the TikTokers, because, you know, they're jackasses. And, yeah, basically, through several stunts, they end up with one of their new crew members whose name is Poopy. Right? Yeah. See, that's anyways. Poopy tried to wakeboard over a bunch of mako sharks, or I forget what kind of shark.
I want to say they were reef sharks, but they might have been black tip sharks, to be honest.
Either way, the dude wipes out going over the ramp and gets like bit hard on the arm and has to be like air evac'd out and all of that. And anyways, luckily they come back. I think this was the plan all along, to show the dangerousness of sharks. But you know, they do a really nice calm, you know, with Steve-O in the water with the actual sharks, respecting them as they should. And the through line and the message at the end of the entire episode is respect these sharks. But it was really great. But like with everything going on, you know, around the world with climate change, and I know we've got more topics on that.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, with this one, you just kind of get what's coming to you. You want to wakeboard.
Absolutely.
In waters full of sharks. 400 million years. They have rows of teeth, and some of them, like, they lose their teeth, and, like, just another row just pops out. I don't think I want to mess with those kinds of fish. We have friends that really want to go shark
diving, like cage diving. Yeah, oh my god, it's literally my dream.
Off South Africa, apparently Maddie does.
Off of Cape Town.
Yeah, and you know they're great whites, and a great
they
white
breach.
Is basically the size of a minivan.
Mm-hmm.
Is a giant fish with more teeth than you can imagine. That routinely just eats everything. So
swims 30 miles per hour.
Yeah, I'm on the side of like, I'm good. I'm gonna stay out of shark infested waters. I'm gonna let them do them, and yeah, stop polluting the planet. That's my take on that. Like, yeah.
Back to the Seaspiracy side of things. Seaspiracy, do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
I you know, they keep talking about, like, why are all these sharks popping up in these new places? Why are there more shark attacks? I mean, why are they feeding on these animals that they've never fed on before? To me, it gets back to Seaspiracy. Like, are we overfishing? Are we taking their food supply? Are we pushing them in different places? Like, I don't know. And then they talk about kind of the way these sharks are now showing up in different areas of the world. Not necessarily because of food also, but because of the temperatures of the water.
That's a big thing to just kind of hop in really quick on that. Like, ecosystems are so fragile, right? Took millions and millions, hundreds of millions of years to evolve. And we are, I said this once in an episode, but it's true. We're just messing with forces we don't understand. And so, yeah, eventually, you know, bull sharks will probably make their way into the Great Lakes. And, you know, have fun swimming on that beach on Lake Michigan.
Unsalted till the end, baby. I guess we'll call this one a minute early because we definitely got through it.
All I'm saying is there are now apex predators in Alaska, whereas before they were just like very minimal sharks. Salmon shark is like the most apex predator of it, but like they don't have the bandwidth to be eating on these seals that are now in Alaska. There is another apex predator, likely a tiger shark, that has moved up into this area. Like, we're seeing things real time and we're experiencing it real time. And I feel like because we know so little about this apex predator, instead of just murdering it so that we don't have to deal with it, we try to understand it. Sharks are fucking cool.
Try to understand just ecosystem ecology in general, which we are terrible at.
Instead of waving our dicks around in space, we could be exploring the ocean.
Don't jump ahead. That's 4 topics in advance. Gosh, fuck it.
Maybe
No,
that
I'm
was a
kidding.
segue. I don't know.
Intellectual properties jammed in space. Again.
Space Jam on the clock. New movie dropped this week. Feels like a throwback to our childhood.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to see this revived. I should probably start the clock, shouldn't I? Anyways, I thought it was a great story. I know it's been really controversial, basically. I'm not really sure why. Is it because the Looney Tunes are 3D? Is it because we have higher standards for athletes acting in movies? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I thought this was a beautifully done movie, and I think the message for kids is really empowering to be yourself, which is ultimately what it is. And, it's hard to step out of someone's shadow as large as LeBron's to be themselves, but, ultimately that's what his son does throughout the course of the movie. And, throw in, obviously, all of the great characters that you love, and a good game of basketball, and a couple other superstar players, and you got yourself a really good hit blockbuster. And so I was a fan of the movie ultimately. But I know that you haven't had a chance to see this yet, so this was probably a poor choice of topics.
What was the feedback you were hearing?
Yeah.
A lot of people talked about it not being a great movie, like movie critics weren't necessarily a fan, but I think the thing we have to remember about movie critics is their expectations for movies, I think, will always be different than the average consumer. Like, the average consumer of a movie wants to see a great story and isn't so worried about, like, the craft of movie making, per se. You know what I mean?
It feels like all movies are about the story, right? Like, or they should be.
They should be, but there's a difference between going to watch like an A24 film and an Avengers movie, right? Like your expectations are set differently depending on the kind of movie. Like I love movies with The Rock in them, but I also understand that like that's not Citizen Kane, right? Like they're not going to be studying like Fast 9 in film school. But in the case of this particular topic, the thing that I will say is LeBron James always talks about hating the fact that he named his son after him, Bronny, because he never wanted his kids to have to live like in his shadow, which on one hand is egotistical because you're just like, look, I know
I'm the best.
I'm the shit.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard for them to also be the shit, at least as good as I'm doing it. So kind of sucks. But on the flip side, it's also based on what you all have told me about the movie and the plot. I love that he has taken being a superstar parent, like he's trying his best to navigate that and to be creative enough to take Space Jam and use that as a vehicle to essentially talk about that journey with his kid is fantastic.
Yeah,
really
and
beautiful.
It felt super genuine too, in all honesty, because he had every cringe dad moment that you would expect a dad to have, and it's coming from LeBron, which really humanizes him. Plus, speaking of Bronny, I assume is the older brother in the show. They don't really get
James Jr.
Yeah, but then his younger son.
Bryce. Yeah,
Well, in the movie, it's Dom and Dom's game, and he's this video game programmer who's created his own basketball game that's more fun than basketball because he feels like his dad pushes him too hard on the court, and he just wants to be out there and have fun. So we made a new version of basketball that basically winning it means that you're having more fun than the other team because you're playing more creatively.
Love it.
So yeah, I don't think the message could be better for kids. So fuck the critics
Yeah.
on that one. But like, no.
I would love to hear what your guys' perspective is once you see it, but I love the movie. We could definitely circle back and talk about Space Jam again.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
revisit
For me.
this topic once I see the movie. I think I'll have a lot more in depth to say.
Absolutely.
And Don Cheadle. I mean,
Oh
like,
yeah, Don Cheadle is the
great
bad
villain.
guy. He is algorithm. He's the algorithm.
I could have used a better name, but like it was poignant.
Yeah.
It is geared for kids, right?
I love it.
They did actually. What I also liked is they did a really great job of explaining how artificial intelligence and algorithms actually work. So I think there was like a side thing going on that I really appreciated. Their explanation of big tech to kids.
And the graphics were really well done too. I mean, like all in all, great movie.
Yeah.
The rivers are getting emptier. Tonight on the Weather Channel.
All right. Next topic is the salmon fish are dying in the Sacramento River of California. So this one's kind of like getting back to the Shark Week one and climate change in general, but you know. They think it's very likely that the entire, it says they're the Chinook salmon, the baby, the entire species is already endangered, and that this could be the nail in their coffin.
Yeah, they're gonna lose an entire brood of hatchlings this year, probably.
It just, what are the ramifications of that, like, to destroy an ecosystem, like, you know?
Let's put it this way, I think we are finally in 2021. I think the generations that came before us are finally starting to see, like, oh, remember when, like, everybody was just, like, screaming about this thing called climate change, and we were like, I don't give a fuck. Just do us. I like money, I like oil, and I like polluting.
And we'll be dead.
Yeah, and we'll be dead. But now what they're starting to realize is, like, oh, like, I'm 65, I wanted to live at least another 20 years, and that 20 years is going to be awful because the planet is not out of whack. It is acting in equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
We've had this much carbon in the atmosphere before. It's just the last time there were gigantic reptiles the size of houses that roam the earth. And now, you know, there's us.
Right.
And mammals. And so I think the continued extreme heat waves, extreme rain, just extreme weather in general.
Yeah.
We're going to see more die-offs like this. And frankly, hopefully this is a true wake-up call to say. And actually, to add to this, really quick, before my turn is over, I was reading about wine country today, Napa Valley. Insurance companies won't cover the vineyards anymore because of fire damage. They're losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, one winery made like a third of what it usually does because it lost its grapes to fire and smoke.
Wow.
So, ecosystem change, the Napa Valley has been this way for, you know, millions of years, and now all of a sudden, the grapes that we just come to expect won't be grown there, and we have to find a way to adapt, and most of these places are just going to go out of business.
So we're saying nobody wants an oaked red or...
Nah.
No.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, like, the short-sightedness of our economic gains is really, really annoying. Like, I've always been a long-term business person. I think, for me, like, where the story really hits home is just, like, the, you know, once-in-a-100-year floods that we've had for the last 7 years here in southeast Michigan. Like, you know, we've had 3 or 4 of them that literally destroy homes, float stuff away. The entire freeway shut down for several days. You can go kayaking in there. It's sick in the worst way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just, you know, comes back to the sharks. It comes back to diamonds in the sky, you know, episode 1 of this podcast.
We talked about how one of the solutions might be just like shooting particles into the atmosphere to reflect the sun's rays, because at this point, and I guess this is the other important note with the climate change stuff, is even if we just stopped, like every country on earth stopped polluting today, it wouldn't change this. So now, I used to be let's just plant a lot of trees and change behavior, but no, we actually need to suck carbon out of the atmosphere to have a chance. not at survival, but just having a future that is cool to live in. Like, the only reason human civilization got to where it is because weather patterns were stable and you could count on the rains coming the same time every year, right?
It allowed us to develop calendars and planning schedules and mythologies around, rebirth myths and everything.
And this is the most stable weather we came of age as a species in the most stable weather the planet has ever known. And now...
#blessed.
Yeah. Now we screwed it up.
Well, surprise, surprise. We'd love to ruin a good thing.
Of course.
We're here for a good time, not a long time.
Clearly.
Thank goodness we get to inherit this earth.
Come on, Joe. Get it together.
Billionaires compared the sizes of their definitions of space.
You're not gonna like this.
Go for it.
Staunchly capitalist gentleman, and I am also a capitalist, but I'm gonna just come out and say it. We should just start taking money from people. This is the problem when you let people make so much money that the human mind can't comprehend it or use it for anything useful. So we talk about the government being this wildly inefficient thing. You know what's really inefficient? 3 dudes having a dick swinging contest about how they can get to space when NASA put a fucking person on the moon in the 1960s. I don't want to hear about this. The planet's imploding, and you have more money than anybody else to actually do something
More
about
money than
it.
the government, I feel like.
Yeah, and invest in things that actually matter, and going to space doesn't matter at all unless you're an astronaut from NASA. I'm cool with that because those are people that went to MIT and are actually trained for this. These people just have gigantic egos and small penises.
2 questions here. The first one is the common question, which is, we're sick and tired of telling NASA to use our taxpayer money to go to space, but the private companies can't go to space. Like, people are upset that we waste taxpayer dollars on going to space as a nation, as a country also.
Yeah, no, I would say it's all stupid. I would say it's all completely useless in the grand scheme of things, but I will give NASA some credit because at least these are people that fucking went to MIT and Harvard and learned about space instead of just being like,
Well, that's all the people they employ.
I got enough money. The fuck else am I supposed to do? I got 5 yachts. I sailed on one. Gave the other to my brother the other day because
all I'm picturing is the
Yeah.
Bo Burnham Jeffrey Bezos song now that's everywhere on TikTok.
He's not in the space race yet, but Mark Zuckerberg has like 100-acre estate in Hawaii, and it's just like, why? Like, why? There are people that are hungry. Chinook salmon are dying. There are fires every year. The planet is in a tailspin, and these 3 idiots are literally
Circle jerky.
yes about space and tweeting about it and say, well, he actually didn't go to space. I'm gonna be the I'm sorry. The fucking planet's imploding. I don't want to hear about going to space. This topic I wanted to talk about because I truly believe these people are idiotic, and I don't say that lightly, but just because you build a successful business does not mean you are like God's gift to us. And I think in order to show them that, I want to take, let's shave off everything except that first billion. You can keep the first billion to fuck around with, but everything else we just should take.
I just don't think the government's going to do anything better with the money, but I agree with you that this is a dumb waste of money.
Let me put it this way. I would rather have my dumb elected officials that I had a choice in electing.
Skim off the top and put it in their own pockets?
Who cares? It's better than 3 humans controlling more money than the bottom, 50 million of us.
How did we get to this point, though? I mean,
Here's my second follow-up to it, though. What would you say to all the people who are like, oh, look at all the great technology and innovations that came out of this original space race? Do we think that we'd also get these leaps and bounds forward in technology as a result of the new age space race? Is that worth it, though?
The planet wasn't dying.
right.
Well, I mean, if you were black, the planet was terrible. But you get what I mean.
No, yeah.
You get what
I just wanted to,
For the most part, the planet was not dying. At least not visibly.
Mm-hmm.
And then to answer your question, how we got here, we just like decided to let monopolies reign and not actually enforce capitalism, which we've talked about
Right.
before. Capitalism is great if everybody plays by the rules. Everybody pays taxes according to whatever rules we agree on.
Well, the thing is, they aren't
Everybody-
paying taxes according to the rules we agree on.
That's a good point. But
That's what I was saying.
the actual spirit of those rules in the sense
It's not about
that-
the spirit, it's about the law.
Fair enough.
And the loopholes.
And the
Unfortunately.
loopholes.
Which are the
in that
law.
Yeah.
Which is the law.
That's what I meant.
But I would say that's a great point. We need to reform our social compact. I will make it the argument that way. We need to reform our social compact because what we have allowed to happen is not actually capitalism, because we bail out businesses that shouldn't be bailed out. And
Absolutely.
we do all sorts of things that have allowed people to amass.
We redefined ourselves.
Our final topic of the evening, which is a very selfish one. We're going to be promoting our company and brand. You know, this is why we put on the podcast to some extent. But it was Art Fair week here in Ann Arbor, which just means that mostly rich, older people who have the ability to make art all day get to come set up a tent here in beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan, and show off their work and occasionally make a sale. What were we doing there? Well, obviously, we're trying to help artists quantify the value of their the economic value of their creative output. It's a mouthful.
Capitalism.
Yeah, capitalism, but this time the artists don't get screwed, or so we hope, using blockchain and NFTs. So we wandered around. It was my cousin and I, and we're talking to some artists. Most of them were well in their 60s, and we're like, blockchain? Smart contracts? What are those? So it wasn't super productive, gonna be honest, but I did find one artist who was particularly interesting. She was LA based, and she was here with her boyfriend, or fiance, husband, not really sure. We'll give a shout out to her Instagram because it was pretty good.
Shouts out at Mackenzie Fisk Art.
But he made basically collages with vinyl records in the image of the artist whose records he made the collage out of, which was really cool. He had this giant Jimi Hendrix mural and another one for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and so that was sick. And then hers was this kind of like it was acrylic paint style, new age kind of look. I would give it for just like surreal images. So it was like little kids around the house, but then there were animals, and it's like their imaginations running wild on the canvas type of vibe. The real big controversy was she was asking us, like, all right, like, I'm interested in this NFT thing. I'm interested in, finding ways to, keep my art valuable, but also support myself as an artist. I think that that's a good mission, good cause. What would you do for me in this situation that I have currently? There is a circus in Russia that stole all of my paintings and put them in murals around their building and circus. I have some friends based in Russia, apparently, not me, her. But they're stickering all over it, trying to obscure the mural, destroy it. But she's tried reaching out to them on Instagram. She's tried reaching out to the authorities. She's like, how does an NFT help me here? And it really doesn't, because at the end of the day, an NFT is just a deed almost that showcases ownership, but you would still need to bring lawyers and get involved with local government and ownership, property rights, and the like. But
it doesn't necessarily stop that.
Right.
But what it does do is create value for the actual digital copy of the work, because it has a unique identifier.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, you will still need to probably fight in very traditional ways to not have your work like blown up on a billboard. But, there are a lot of people who will pay a lot of money, because as we just defined, there are people with too much fucking money that will pay to have like one of 3 copies of this particular thing that you did. I mean, a person in the New York Times, I forget the exact number, but they made an astronomical amount of money, tens of thousands of dollars for charity, for an article that you could go read for free, but it was an NFT, right? So that is the value, is you're creating a market of scarce goods.
Absolutely. And I think that was kind of the take home is she already is able to create scarcity, so where does the NFT come in? And I think that is a very valid question, and the way we're trying to utilize NFTs is a little different than most people thinking about it. And we have to get a better message out there that we're trying to turn an NFT into a stock, basically.
Exactly.
Alright, should we wrap her up with a game?
Yeah, this is we're gonna try to keep this fun and light, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Can we pick the fake head not? Can we pick the fake headline out of these news articles?
So is there one real headline?
There
and
is one
three
real
fake
headline.
ones?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, here we go. Starting off strong. Biola University, a Christian college in Southern California, renamed a class on dinosaurs in their bios curriculum, A History of Dragons.
Okay.
So that's number one. UMich researchers discovered a species of snails were using solar-powered shells to avoid mass extinction. Okay, that's number two. Number three is Brooklyn-based Van Leeuwen ice cream. Sorry if that's not pronounced right. Released a limited edition run of a so-called chemtrail flavor titled Vladimir Skupin.
Okay.
Archaeologists in Southeast Asia unearthed an equine fossil with a sagittal bone in its forehead dated back to only 800 BC, dubbed the Kygian unicorn. So, of all four, who do we think is the truther?
I didn't make that easy.
No, they did not. Kudos to...
Jesus, Cass.
It was Fiona. Fiona, the 9-year-old, wrote one of those.
Right. Bonus points for whoever can correctly identify who made each of the fake headlines, 28-year-old brother and a 9-year-old sister, and Cass. Wow, to the 9-year-old, props.
Fiona, I'm guessing yours is the unicorn one, but only because I'm stereotyping.
All right, so anybody want to give a guess? Give it a go? What's the truther?
I'm going to say Vladimir Skupin is a real ice cream flavor.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the Christian college renaming dinosaurs to dragons as the real one.
Is that because your ties to UMich?
Well, what? I didn't want to choose UMich?
Well, you're both incorrect. It is actually snails avoiding mass extinction.
Okay, well, that...
Solar power ship.
There's an article through CNET. Scientists glue tiny computers on snails to solve mass extinction mystery.
That's a really misleading headline. I thought the snails made their own solar-powered shells, and I was going to be like, damn.
No, they do. They're just now visualizing it using computers to determine.
What does that even mean, a solar-powered shell?
I don't know what it means, but it's provocative. I have no idea. I'm going to have to learn it more, because this is crazy.
Oh.
Do we know who wrote which headlines?
I don't have that information, Cass, so I'm excited to hear.
I'm going to go with Fiona wrote the one about unicorns.
She did.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Kaz wrote the one about the Christian college and dinosaurs because he took a dinosaurs class.
He did.
That sounds about right.
And the solar-powered snails because he was throwing me off. He knew.
He did.
I think that was a diversion.
So then his brother is Vladimir Skupin?
Yeah, I think his brother's Vladimir
So
Skupin.
there is a mac and cheese flavored ice cream that was debuted by Van Leeuwen. So
Oh, that was them?
it was misleading, but...
It was the Kraft flavor.
Yes, yep.
So.
Kraft mac and cheese flavored ice cream. Ew.
Just really quick before we end on the solar-powered snails, there is
Yes.
a sea slug that is becoming quite rare according to National Geographic. It looks like a little leaf. It's an inch or two in length and can go without eating for 9 months or more, photosynthesizing, however you say that word, with its stolen plant parts as it basks in the sun.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so that's a real thing.
Bizarre.
On that
Nature
note,
is incredible.
keep arming yourselves with knowledge.
I'm going to say Rip Bismarcky. How bizarre.
Yeah. Well, like I said, keep arming yourselves with knowledge, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.